All right. Hello, everyone. We are back. Very excited to be here with you today. My name is Tamia Booker, and I'm here on behalf of Game Power, which you all know is a collaborative multimedia platform that has shared values by community activists and professionals working to impact democracy, elections, and advocacy. Game Power has also been known to really help people organize and network. And they put together lots of professional development programs. And today is our second in our series around how you can get a job working in politics. And so very excited today to sit here with Cirilo with Black with No Chaser, which you all know is a disruptive and inclusive media outlet and digital consultancy company that influences Black culture. And they empower people to think Black, live Black, and unapologetically live Black. And so I'm very excited to have Cirilo here today. So I'll turn it over to you for a second, Cirilo, to introduce yourself.
Tamia, thank you so much for the introduction. Again, my name is Cirilo. Happy to be here. I think that everyone that's engaging with the actual platform today should be highly encouraged to actually ask the appropriate questions. Come with your questions. Don't be scared to ask very candid questions. I think our guest today is very, very well informed and prepared to answer any question you might have, especially when we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so, I'm super excited, and we're super excited about having Kristina on today. So y'all sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
All right. So now we have Kristina Gordon from Fieldworks. I think she's coming on stage now. Kristina, we're very excited to have you here today and to talk with our folks about opportunities working with your organization. And I just want to quickly give the audience a couple notes about you because you have this amazing background. And so we're really excited to have you. Kristina's early career in politics includes time as a public information officer for the House Democrats in the Washington State Legislature and as a staffer in the Clinton White House. After a 20-year detour as community college educator, props to you, she returned to her political roots in 2018, joining Fieldworks as a canvasser. Later that summer, she became a canvas director and then ran the company's central recruitment operation during the 2020 election cycle. She is excited about her current role as Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, which she combines with recruiting new canvas director talent into the company. Kristina, we're very happy to hear from you today. And I would love to start off and just ask you to talk to us about some of the jobs opportunities at Fieldworks, anything I might have left out that people may be interested in, because I'm sure there's a whole lot that we didn't get to cover. So turn it over to you.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is a really exciting series that you all are putting together. Yeah, we are Fieldworks. We are a grassroots political consulting firm. We've knocked on millions of doors, collected millions of signatures, registered hundreds of thousands of people to vote. We've been in business since 2001 and just recently celebrated our 20th anniversary as a company. And it was really kind of great because we had, everybody's kind of dispersed everywhere. It was kind of during that lull. And so we had a virtual cake pop party. Cake pops are big for us. We get these treats fairly regularly, but that was pretty fun. And, but as far as, what we do, like I said, we're grassroots. When there are local movements that, kind of need help getting their projects over the finish line, Fieldworks lends our expertise in organizing and campaign logistics, so that local movements can help so that they can keep their projects on track and get them over the finish line. One of the things that I think can be daunting about anything that starts at the grassroots, or really starts and ends at the grassroots, doesn't it? Is, regular people don't totally know how to navigate the process. And that's the part that we bring in. So, and that's the part I'm really proud of that we do.
Well, I'm very excited to hear that. And Cirilo and I talked about this in our last session too, of really trying to make sure we're working and talking with organizations that represent and work with and hire regular people. So I'm very happy to dig into that with you today. So can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the positions you've hired for or some of the positions you're currently hiring for and what the process is to apply for your firm?
Yes. At any given time when we're actively, working on projects, we are hiring for basically two kinds of positions. We have canvassers. Actually, we have a couple of different positions, but we have canvassers, obviously the folks who are, out there talking to folks, getting the signatures for petitions, registering people to vote. We also have, kind of still in that hourly, we have like a quality control process. And there's some of that is kind of at that hourly level. We also, like the second side would be the director level positions. These are salaried positions. And so that's our canvas office directors, quality control directors. That's really where it kind of begins. That's how you get into our company. We hire and promote from within. Most of the people, whenever we get together for our trainings for a new project, we'll go around and say, how did you hear about Fieldworks? And overwhelmingly, the answer is Craigslist, because most of us started as canvassers. Even when we come in with, I had a political resume, but I started as a canvasser because I thought that was really important.
I love that. When I saw that, I was like, okay, we definitely have to shout the fact that you canvassed.
Yeah.
Right?
I was like, did she do that on purpose? I was like,
I did actually. I saw when I went to the website, and I actually saw the canvasser ad first, went to the website and saw that they had directors, and I've done things, and I didn't put this in my resume, but or on my intro stuff, but I have a master's degree in political management. But I was like, I can't just walk in as if. That's my personal sensibility. It's like, no, I need to canvass. I need to know what that is. This is what this business does. So, and then, obviously the candidate that we were collecting signatures for was a worthwhile candidate. It was very easy, obviously, to just throw my effort into it.
I was going to ask if it was a candidate or an issue that you were canvassing for.
Yeah, this one was it was a candidate to get on the ballot.
So now you're the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? And so I think I like, now we get into more of the storytelling aspect of like who you are and like your trajectory and like within Fieldworks, which I think is important to like highlight, because oftentimes if you're saying I want to scale with this company, or I'm trying to figure out if there is an opportunity for upward mobility within a company or organization, people want to see if there's some fruits of the labor that have now been like there's somebody representative of that, right?
Yes.
And so talk about some of the process that you had going from canvasser now to being director of DEI over there.
Okay, so if you want to talk about just opportunities for advancement, my first 26 weeks, which actually did span 2 different election cycles, I got promoted like 5 times. A couple that were within the canvasser role, and then once I promoted into directing, I got promoted a couple more times just within that. And yeah, one of the things that I really like about this company is that they will recognize, especially, as you start to reach, I would say, kind of the highest level of, like in your director responsibilities in our canvassing offices, as you start to reach those levels, they really are good about what is this person's special talent? What are they good at? And how do we help them to continue to grow in that capacity? And so the majority of the time, the promotion route is, you become a director. You then start to lead and manage deputy directors. So you'll have a director team in your office, larger offices. The next step from there is senior director, which is a little bit more mentoring. We're actually in the process of fine-tuning what that role is, because it is evolutionary and dependent really upon the specific talents of the people who are occupying the position. So, there's one of the sides kind of tracks into training and development. Another side is more in operations and becoming a program manager. I've somehow managed to go into this recruitment vein, which in some ways didn't really exist. I mean, we had our central recruitment, but it didn't have like the central recruitment plus, like what else are we doing with this? And that's kind of where I found myself. Yeah.
Well, I definitely want to say that was a question I had about upper mobility internally and training programs. So just knowing that you all are mentoring and training your staff internally speaks volumes, because that's what we need, is to be able to grow and learn within the organization and from many of our leadership. So we definitely appreciate that. And hearing from you going through that trajectory is pretty inspiring.
Yeah. And I think it's also worth mentioning that, one of our partners started as a canvasser. So the entire hierarchy, if you will, is available.
Wow. Okay. I mean, and that's, I just think like, you don't really hear that a lot.
Right.
In many conversations I've had with people, it's someone coming from outside, which isn't necessarily always bad, but there's opportunities for you to really grow and to start within the organization, I think is attractive to candidates, and by the perspective candidates. And so it's just I'm very happy to hear that's about the work that you all are doing. I want to ask you too on that. So you mentioned the roles from canvasser all the way up to senior leadership. And of course, everybody wants to know this when applying for positions. What's the salary range when you start off as a canvasser versus being a director? What does that look like?
So what do you call it? At the
hourly range.
Right, at the hourly level. So canvassers, quality control folks. So company-wide, our minimum is $15 per hour.
Okay.
But project to project, that will vary. So some projects will be 18 to 20. We've had projects, and it depends on a lot of factors. We've also seen, I think we just finished a project that was paying 23 to 25 an hour. And so there's a pretty big range, and some of it I would say a fair amount of it has to do with level of difficulty. So, if you're canvassing in Montana in December,
God bless.
Right. Like we're going to pay accordingly for what that is.
That's good to know.
And actually that reminds me, one of the things, it's odd, like sometimes I'll get some weird pushback about, any worthwhile, issue should have volunteers. You shouldn't have to pay people. And the thing that I like to say to that is, for the kinds of issues that we work on, progressive democratic issues, the people who have the most at stake on those things are not in a position to volunteer their time or work for free. Like, a lot of times they're working more than one job, and our job is one of them. And so, we really respect and honor people's labor, their work, what it takes to do, to do the work itself, but also like big picture. We know that the people, like I said, if we're working on trying to raise minimum wage, like obviously the people with the most at stake in that are not able to just work for free. So
now we call them essential workers.
Yeah. So
they weren't essential to begin with. But, so one thing I've always that always stuck with me, right? And organizations tend to I don't know, this is a way of kind of saying if you really want to work at the organization or whatnot, but how often, what's the relationship between, hey, I need to go ask my superior for that promotion, or my now superior goes, I see you've been busting your tail and I recognize the talent. And because the point you just hit on, the power dynamics, and I'm very busy and I may not even have thought about even get promoted. How often does that happen at Fieldworks where somebody, you can say, I recognize it. You say, you know what though? You got a little more something in you, right? Some je ne sais quoi that I don't know. How often are y'all going after talent within before the talent then comes to you?
Okay. I want to put a pin in that because I didn't answer the other half of Tamia's question. And beginning salaries. We have a transparent pay scale for our salaried employees, and it is based on your time in service. So how many weeks you have in service, as well as your performance and level of responsibility. So, somebody who's brand new to the company will start either as a deputy director at $1,050 per week, or as a director at $1,155 per week. Now that's the salary. And in addition to that, we also, because this is in the field, right? So we also have a really generous housing stipend. So that's $550 per week, which, for a month, that's $2,200 a month to pay for your housing.
I know. We were like,
yeah. And we have,
I'm liking where we feel work.
A housing stipend.
Yeah, we provide rental cars. We pay for the gas for the rental car. You're responsible basically for feeding yourself.
Right.
And then we have a pretty robust health insurance policy options that, if you were going to opt into that, there's 2 different levels. And with obviously varying levels of coverage, but that's also available to our hourly staff after 90 days on the job.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And then, as I was mentioning before, the salary is also based on your time in service. And so we actually have automatic raises built in, 2.5% raise every 26 weeks. You're on payroll with us.
Somebody get the Fieldworks playbook.
I know. I'm like, we're recording this. We'll be sending for our participants that don't make it, but it also will be used to encourage other organizations to take care of their staff like you do.
Right.
I mean, honestly, it's important. I think it's important. And so, anyway, I'm just listening.
Oh yeah, and so so please remind me again the question. I just need a quick refresher.
My bad. I got a pen right here. You see it? Boom. Let me get it. So, the question was essentially, how often do y'all actually go out to the talent?
There it is.
Without having them to go to you. And I know this sometimes is talked about performance reviews, and sometimes performance reviews can be a little weird, and very the power dynamics is also kind of weird in those situations too, especially for the subordinate. So how often do y'all go into the talent so what they recognize the work that you're doing and how you're helping the company? Here's what we want to offer you. They got something coming through the pipeline, and you're the person for it.
I would say, it happens fairly frequently that, kind of senior leadership comes to you. And I actually mean that. That's very much a kind of a company-wide approach. So if we're directors, we're looking at our team leaders, and we are always looking at our canvassers and encouraging people to hey, are you interested in team leader? This is the path to get there. And so one of the things that I think is pretty great about the way we operate is that we try to make the kind of the path to promotion transparent. Whether that's, if you're a canvasser, this is what it takes to get into this level. If you're going from team leader, hey, I think, are you interested at all in the job that I'm doing right now? Have you ever thought about it? Here's what it takes to get there. And so we really are trying to, help and at those, even at that lower level, make sure that everybody feels this is available to you, and I would say that's one of the things, my community college background, one of the things I love about what we do is, we might start, everybody shows up from Craigslist because they've got bills to pay, and it's, their car just broke, and now that's this extra thing they have to deal with. And maybe they're only showing up for the paycheck at first, but once they go through the training and they learn about the issue, and then they start to see their own success in the field. Oh my goodness. So I've watched so many people in the course of a day figure out their own political efficacy, right? Mm-hmm. And then suddenly they're starting to see themselves not only as political animals, but also people who have leadership and influence, and which is something they never would have thought of before. And, that level of growth in such a short period of time is actually something I get from Fieldworks that I never got from teaching, but always wanted. Well, not that I never got it from teaching, but it was so much more rare. Here I get it all the time.
That's amazing.
But yeah, so I would say like a lot of fairly frequently, like a couple of my promotions came from a partner approaching me and asking me, hey, this is something, we see the work you're doing. We have this position, are you interested in it? And, but other times, like right now, actually, we're in the middle of interviewing for senior director. We have people who are at the director rank right now, and we've opened it up. It's an application process. Tell us all the best things you've done at Fieldworks and the things you've learned, and how you want to grow, how you want to continue to contribute and be creative here. And so it's like a two-way thing. It's, we want to ask, we want to present the opportunity. And then we also want to, give people the opportunity to apply and, say, hey, I'm interested. Actually, that just happened on an interview I got out of today was, oh, by the way, speaking of next steps, I'm interested in this other thing that's kind of the next step after this one. And so, we always welcome people telling us that they're interested in things so that we can help them develop into it and be purposeful about it.
And that's what you want, is a culture where people feel encouraged to say they're interested and to talk with leadership about it. So that's super important.
Yeah.
How long does your staff stay? I know canvassing is a little different because sometimes people kind of rotate, but besides that, what's like the average amount of time that someone stays within the organization?
So salaried positions, I would say, like moving into kind of more senior and leadership positions, folks move into that position after about 3-ish to 5-ish years. But we also have some folks who, gosh, it's hard to say about like kind of average. We have a lot of people who will come back year after year, and that's canvassers too. I've gone into an office and it's like, this guy's been canvassing with us since, 2008.
Wow.
And he comes back to canvas with us every time we come to town. Right?
Yes.
It's pretty great. And it's funny because we also have people who, they'll be with us for a few years, then life will take them wherever it takes them, and then they'll come back after a few years. That happens very, very frequently too with our company. So, when people kind of, have to leave, this happened fairly recently too. We had to say goodbye for now to some folks, and that's the way we put it. Like, all right, bye for now, but we'll see you around. We'll probably see you back here.
Right, the place you keep coming back to. That's awesome. I don't know if Cirilo, do you want to go and ask a question? I know we're going to probably move to audience questions in a second.
Yeah, no. So I always get many questions. I feel like, excuse me, my dog running around and messing. JB is always trying to get in action. Kristina, you're not the first one to try to barge in on. So don't worry.
I appreciate his entrances.
He's tenacious when it comes to camera. He's like, look, I need to get my FaceTime. But no. In all seriousness, I think that like, I just want to say really quickly, I appreciate the way the culture of the company. I don't think I've ever heard honestly, like in all of my days, I don't care if it's been all black org, all brown org, a super diverse org. I've never heard about an organization where the culture was like, even if your spot is not here, we can still find other places where you can be happy. And I think that I think from a more circle community standpoint is that when you have evangelicals out there for you in the field, you don't have to go looking for talent all the time, because somebody will go, hey, I was there and I staffed this organization. And I'll be quite honest, I don't know many organizations that I work for where I'm like, yeah, you should go back. I'm like, actually, we should have a conversation about whether or not you should even apply. And it just speaks volumes about, the culture you all created over there. And I think that, I'm pretty sure Tamia is over her heart is smiling. And I mean, like, but with that being said, my next question is like on a geographical level, right? Currently, like, where are you all like operating? How are you gearing up for like 2022? As we know, midterms are rolling around. A lot of state and local stuff gonna be happening as well. Are you all only doing electoral based things? Are you working on some ballot initiatives? Like, what do you all have coming through the pipeline?
Right now, we just wrapped up in South Dakota actually, and turned in like, I think 46,000 signatures to get Medicaid expansion on the ballot in South Dakota next year. So, so this time of the cycle is more ballot initiatives, getting things qualified for the ballot, getting candidates qualified for the ballot. Right now, like I said, we just finished up in South Dakota. We've got Arizona. We're working on a project in Arizona. We're working on a project in Florida and Michigan right now. And so it's weird because we're coming kind of into this winter time. But yeah, we're going to be, I mean, it's a midterm, and yet here we are, right? Like we went back to work fairly quickly, considering that it's a midterm cycle. So, right. So that's kind of where we are right now. What will start to happen in the spring, it's going to be, again, like I said, a little more initiatives. And shortly after that, we'll turn into like voter registration and get out the vote. That's kind of the typical lifespan of the cycles.
No real break.
No.
No, yeah.
No real break.
Being in politics, y'all, we said this on the last call. It is a thankless job at times. It's full throttle all the time.
Yeah.
And I will say though that and I get the feeling from Fieldworks that there are times in which your manager or a person leading your group will kind of figure out and say, hey, look, how's everybody doing mentally, physically, emotionally, cycle, whatever it is. But at the same time, if you're at an organization like a Fieldworks, I'm pretty sure that there's a culture where you can speak up and go, hey, look, like, I need a day off. And so with that being said, though, like, do y'all often is there unlimited PTO? Like, if I'm a canvasser and I'm hey, look, my bad. Sorry.
Well, I would say, okay, so on the canvasser front, we have the most flexible, well, maybe not the most, we have a very flexible scheduling situation for canvassers. So you can work full or part-time. The only thing with ours is that if you work a shift, you have to work the entire shift, but you can pick whatever days you want, as many or as few as you want to work. So if you're a canvasser, our salaried staff, you're right. This is where it's like, this is campaign politics. It is not a 9-to-5 cubicle job at all. It's long hours, right? And we actually work 6 days a week. That's everybody company wide. So that's top to bottom. Nobody get, the higher up, you don't get more free. No, that's not, it's everybody's is in the same boat schedule wise. One day off per week. But the thing about being a director in our field offices is, the projects themselves last about 10 to 12 weeks, usually. Sometimes they'll get extended and last longer. But they'll, if you get to the end of a project and it was just a really beastly one, or you just need time, it's like you can say, hey, I'm not ready to go back to another project. And give me at least 2 weeks, and then whatever we have coming around the bend, then hit me up. It's certainly not a disqualifier. You're not out forever if you're not ready to go on the very next thing. But we also, because for quite a few people, it's, hey, the cycle is this long. Keep me working for as long as you can, and from our perspective, it's, hey, we want to keep good people working for sure. So we do try to time to the extent that we have control, obviously a negotiation with our clients as well, and deadlines. We try to keep our good people working, and, where there can be some breaks, we have those, and people are always, able to speak up and just say, hey, like I can't go straight to the next thing.
Appreciate that. I think you actually answered one of the questions of the folks that asked in the audience. So that was great. And the question was essentially, is there some rollover to other campaigns? Have we done with this campaign? And the answer is yes, people. There's always opportunity out there to keep good folks around. So if you fit within the model, people are going to work. Yep. And then boom, here comes the work. And you can do as much as your heart desires. So.
And, on that note, I would also say, the campaign season is a sprint. It's a marathon length sprint. So I would say, the hours are long, but if you want to talk about work-life balance, it's like, an individual day is long, but what you get as kind of the balance out for that is the cycle, though, is short. The projects are short. And so you can have, a couple weeks off or a month off, or the way I do it is I'm going to stay as soon as you let me in, I'm staying until like election day is over and we all have to go home. But what I put all my money away. I know that, people are in various positions as far as being able to do that. I've got student loans, but I put as much away as I possibly can because I'm thinking about the off season. I don't want to answer to anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. This past cycle, we got to play a role in the Georgia runoff. So, my 2020 cycle, I did count. It was 539 days long. I was away for that long. But when I came home, I got to have just 6 months of hiking and doing whatever I wanted. I could think about creative projects. I could, the kinds of things that, those bigger kind of life development things that you can't fit into a weekend here and there. It's the stuff that like, no, I need a big block of time to really, it's like you get a sabbatical at the end of every cycle.
I was just about to say that, kind of like a sabbatical.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. And you definitely need it because they're so intense.
Yes. It was funny. Friends asked me, oh, hey, I'm in town, because I was just rolling back into town. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to talk to anybody for at least a week.
Yeah, like, I'm sorry, I can't do this right now. Do you have any idea how many people I talked to on this trail? I just need a second.
Yeah.
I take a break after every campaign. I tell people you should at least take a month and try if you can, and try to just decompress from the work. So
absolutely,
know that you all have that flexibility as well.
Yeah.
When people are working on campaigns, and this actually came in from someone in the audience I'm looking at, when they're coming to work with you, are they working on specific campaigns, or do you all have, just, let's see what it says, or just the company have to work for whoever you put them on? Or do they say like, I want to,
I see.
Okay, I'm doing this race in Virginia, this race in X, this race here. Do they choose, or do you all?
So, okay. So the way really you get hired for a role, so becoming a director, I'm going to just kind of focus on that. So if you come in as a director, we'll send you to our training, but the training is project specific. And I would say this last round, we actually had 2 different projects that were being trained at the same time. And so that was an instance where people didn't know where they were going to go next. But, when I got hired for the director position, it was, here's what we're working on right now in Arizona. And I stayed in Arizona for all of the projects that we had in Arizona. But, we had a project in Arizona just now that transitioned into a different project. Some of those directors stayed on in Arizona, some moved, to a different state. And a lot of times, basically the way we approach it is, we get to, it's fairly organic. We get to a training, we see what the whole landscape of talent and personalities and those things are. It's like, oh, those 2 seem like they would be great in an office together. Let's, and so it's not like, hi, I have this project, let me interview you for that project. It's more, hey, here's this role. And then we have these opportunities to be in that role coming up in 2 weeks. Are you available? Are you interested?
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Cirilo, do you want to ask the next question? I know we got a couple in here. You're muted. Cirilo, you're muted. Can we unmute him?
My bad.
I was about to. I was going to try to unmute you.
That's all good. So, my bad. So, I'm gonna read exactly what's on here because I want to make sure I'm getting their thoughts out there. And it's the one regarding the sports betting legalization initiative in Florida, and they're about to start their first shift working in Fieldworks next week. They said they're feeling a little conflicted about supporting the Florida sports betting legalization initiative because it takes away revenue from Seminole Tribe of Florida, right? The question is, do you have any advice for me or thoughts on supporting initiatives in solidarity with marginalized groups like indigenous tribes?
That is an excellent question. I think, bottom line, we want people who feel like they can enthusiastically, collect signatures for an issue. And if it's something that you don't believe in or you feel conflicted about, that I really do feel like that is an individual, decision that everybody has to make. Obviously we're not going to say like, you have to vote for this, you have to believe in this. Like I said, most of our canvassers, when they come in, they don't even know what the issue is. They don't care. They don't vote. I can't tell you how many people I've had, join a voter registration campaign and they're like, I don't vote, I'm not even registered. And it's like, oh, well, of course, I'm going to encourage you to register, but if you decide that that's not for you, that's definitely not a contributing factor to whether or not you would be hired. But yeah, of course, I think with any kind of position, there's a level of, do I feel good about putting my name on this? Do I feel good about the end result that I'm helping to bring about? That's a question for everybody in every job, I would say.
And I appreciate that question because I don't think that many people would even, entertain it. Like sometimes people do things and work on campaigns that they don't really feel connected to, whether it be for the candidate or issue-based campaigns. And that can be really deflating, especially when you're in a sprint for 539 days. That can be really, really taxing, seriously. But I guess a follow-up really quickly to me, if you don't mind, is like, if this person or any other person says, you know what, like I thought about this, maybe not this one is for me, but when should they follow up in terms of like the next paid canvasser job? Do they stay on the rolls? How do you then cycle through folks that don't want these campaigns, but will also qualify in the very beginning to work as a canvasser?
That is a great question. We actually, as I mentioned before, we come back to places fairly frequently. If you have ever worked for us and we come back into your town, you're going to hear from us. We're going to text you and email you more than once. Because like I said, we love having people who have done the work for us already, who are familiar with our processes and stuff, come back, and what's great is a lot of times they're we'll get calls like, hey, when are you coming back to Ohio? When are you coming back to, fill in state here. When are you coming back to Oklahoma? Whatever it is. And because, so many of the people who work for us are like, that was great. When's the next one? Yeah.
That's right. So we have a question regarding canvasser applicants. Are there specific metrics that are most important for a canvasser applicant to document? And this person said they actually worked on a campaign and they had tablets that tracked them physically, and some of the most experienced canvassers seem to have higher scores. Is that important for you?
I see what you're So I would say some of the things that we care about when it comes to our canvassers is, when you are collecting signatures or getting voter registration cards filled out, completed, are you doing that correctly? Are you helping people to fill out these forms correctly? Because the thing is, the members of the public, when they encounter us, they are trusting that if they've signed the petition, that it's going to count. And, and here's where that campaign logistics thing comes in. It's no, there's no gray area on, well, it kind of, they almost feel, they forgot their zip code, or they forgot they abbreviated the city. And, for at the canvasser level, it seems like such a drag to have to be on people about this, but that is probably one of the biggest things that we do care about, is like, hey man, this person has trusted you, that when they fill out their voter registration card, that they're actually registered to vote. So yeah, that's probably one of our most important metrics, is that people are actually performing the job correctly. For whether it's, for sending, if it's site-based canvassing, collecting signatures, or a door-to-door campaign, we want to make sure that people are where they're supposed to be, collecting the data in real time with a person, not waiting until, they walk away and they're trying to remember everything. Like, it's just some kind of basic best practices, if we're interviewing somebody, or trying to help them make a plan, right, for voting. We want to make sure that we're recording that information accurately.
Yeah, it's very important, because we've seen in the news where people thought they were registered and they weren't, and people didn't make people have not even made it to be a candidate because they weren't able to fit the ballot access requirements. So that's very important. So definitely understand. I ran our ballot access program, so when you were talking for the Corey campaign, and I had a little PTSD when you were talking about that, like very a lot to get signatures and ballots, and some states are a lot tougher than others. And I'm not telling you anything you do not know.
Right. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like, 2 states that I've worked in had really strict rules about no part of anybody's signature can go outside of the box.
I feel like I remember. I feel like
right, and it's crazy time. It's like, but people are gonna write big, loopy, and do whatever the public is gonna do, because they don't think it's important, right? Because why should that be important? But the law says, and I remember, man, this campaign, we were putting rubber bands across the boxes on the lines to keep people from going. It was like such this, like, an hour every day was spent on these rubber bands. It was the craziest thing.
Yes, that's why I was like,
we gotta make sure that these signatures count.
You're right. Yes, that's exactly right.
And one thing that a canvas is learning, though, deep down, is compliance, right? And I think that part of being in like policy, working in policy around whatever it is that compliance is a huge, huge, huge thing. So as you scale, right? And I want people to think about this as terms of their career, is that compliance is critical. And the more you climb the ladder, the more you have to be in line or complying with the rules of the road. Whether that's internal processes, whether it's external laws and policies that they can abide by. And so compliance is critical. Sometimes it does make our jobs harder than what it needs to be, but it is what it is, right? And that's why we do ballot initiatives. That's why we make sure certain things on the ballot to decrease barriers or entryways into like the political process, i.e. voter registration, so on and so forth. And so, just keep that in mind, y'all. We are thinking about scaling, is that compliance will always be around you. Sometimes it may be in the weeds of things, and you got to make sure you're cornering off boxes with rubber bands. But it's really these, like, I think, to me, though, like, these are little bitty things along the way that, 1, build character, 2, make you truly understand what it means to be compliant, and then like put it together and saying, well, how do I then, when I become a director or a field director or a senior canvasser, how do I then lead a team and make them feel like their work is valuable and know that we're not being ticky-tacky to the point where it's us, but we have a larger job and a larger goal to do? And how do I connect the hearts and minds to this one initiative? Like, how do I make that happen? And I think that, like, if you're a canvasser, wherever you start at, which really bleeds right into this next question, which is like almost fantastic why I did this. But like, the next question would be, and this person was like, look, they've done all this stuff. They've been an organizer. They've been a team lead. They've been a field director in other organizations. And they were like, look, do I have to have do I have to start at the bottom with Fieldworks? Do you all take time in the game into account and how that will be factored in into leadership roles? How does it work over there by y'all?
Yeah. So, okay, there's a couple things. One of the things, coming kind of back to the ticky-tacky fouls, right, is, where we are as a country politically at the moment is, if it's like a really kind of dog eat dog. People are the opposition is so threatened by, oh my goodness, you're going to let everybody vote who's eligible, like and they'll put together like these kind of like, voter ID things that when you look at them, it's ticky-tacky foul stuff, not, not what I would call like real, right? So it's like, value your own labor and value this this cause and our goal enough to do it right. So we are above reproach, it's a good cause when the opposition is just like, at all costs, we got to figure out some technicality and some kind of dumb way to disqualify this thing that overwhelmingly the electorate wants to have happen. But they're going to do some, the rubber, but the loop on this signature went above the line and we're going to throw that out. Like, oh my gosh, that's a dumb way to lose a really important issue, right? So I just wanted to kind of speak to that that first sentiment, and then secondly, coming into the company, like as I mentioned, like that was my own personal sensibility. I probably could have applied for director without canvassing. I probably could have done that. We actually now, if you come into the company and you've never canvassed for us, we love it if you've canvassed, obviously, at any point. But if you've never canvassed for us, we do like you to do. We actually now have a requirement. You have to canvass for us for 4 days, and we work out the logistics about how that happens. So if you're in a town where we have an office, that's convenient. Like, go canvass. Yeah. But if you're not, then we'll get you to that place and have you canvass, and we'll put you up in a hotel. Like, I mean, we're not going to make, and this is kind of the same thing, with our field directors. This is a job where you have to be away from home to do it, because we're a nationwide company. And so it shouldn't cost you money to go do the work, right? To take the job. So, right. We take care of, you're going to have to pay to feed yourself no matter what, no matter where you are. But the car part and the housing part, like we're going to take care of that so that, you're not incurring some new and extra expense to be able to do the work. And same thing, to do this canvassing requirement, we're going to make it so, and also, and that's a good trial process for everybody who's involved. Because if you've got extensive political experience, but you've never canvassed yourself, like, we want you to know how our offices operate, but also what canvassing is, and being able to manage canvassers from that first person experience obviously is super valuable.
So we have a couple of questions that kind of all, I think, come together here. And so one is on how do you vet applicants when you're hiring? And there was a question about screening for values, partisanship, which I think you did touch on a little bit. And then do you all do criminal background checks? And what's your policy? So 3 parts we can.
Okay, I'll try to remember all of them.
The first one is on vetting applicants. And I think with vetting, as someone who's done this, it also ties into screening for values and partnership, make sure they align with the company. So that's
right. So, we, for our applicants, really what we're looking for are people who are organized, can lead and inspire a staff, who are great communicators. Obviously, we're a progressive firm, so you have to be able to be enthusiastic about what we're working on. Even maybe some of the boring stuff that maybe you aren't, it's like, here's this cause, it's important to the candidate. Even if you're kind of medium on the candidate, it still matters, right? You still have to at least be able to inspire other people about it. So that's one part of it. We have, yes, absolutely. Everybody who works for us has to pass a background check. And in some states, there are different, some different requirements around whether or not you're able to circulate a petition if there are certain things in your background. And so we adjust the background checks to be in compliance with whatever the state requirements are, right? But then, and then obviously, like just for us as a company, this is, these are people who are working with members of the public, sometimes going up to their doors. So, we care about making sure that everybody in all of those situations are safe, on both sides, right? So.
You did that without me even reminding you of the other questions.
Okay, I was going to say, did I get all of it? I don't know if I got all of it, but
yes, you did. Oh, and they asked about vetting applicants when you're hiring in mass, but I think you answered that too.
Okay.
So it looks like we have 2 more. Cirilo, do you want to take a stab at one of these, and then we can close out in case? And if people have questions, put them in now before we wrap up.
Yeah, we got about 5 to 7 more minutes of question time, which means that it's probably equates to about 3 questions, right?
3.
2
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I got a follow-up question though, right? So we talked about like canvassers and people going out to the wild and like doing their thing and going up to people, which can be very frightening at times. But internally, right? In terms of like, background checks internally, is that more like, is there like, okay, if you had this on your background and you're going out as a canvasser, that could be like but then I'm sorry, but then y'all make everybody go canvas at some point. So maybe I just think like that probably is a company-wide policy. I'm basically trying to say it's a different standard by way of measuring like something on somebody's background check, as opposed to would it be like internal versus external? Is it different, or is it kind of relatively the same?
Okay. Okay. So I will say, as far as kind of the one thing that I can kind of point to in the criminal background check is, in Arizona specifically, this is the example that I have just on hand is, you cannot circulate a petition unless you're eligible to vote. And so for some canvassers, if they've got I want to say a felony, they have to provide proof that their voting rights have been restored in order to be able to canvass, to circulate a petition. So on that front, I would say, like, we screen for felonies and then go, all right, well, have your rights been restored and documents, et cetera. And then we help them, kind of through that process. As far as like internally, obviously we care very deeply about the integrity of a democratic process. So, there are certain violations, like if you commit fraud or anything like that while working for us, that's a no-go. You cannot come back to us after that. I mean, obviously, we have a really strict zero tolerance policy, obviously, around fraud. And then some other, then now we're getting into like, what about this? What about this? Those are kind of the big things, because there's obviously, when we're talking about petitions, voter registration, there's a certain level of public trust, right? They're writing their addresses and things on these forms, and trusting us that when they fill it out, it's actually been done. So like, I don't know what specific things are in our background checks, but you definitely, you have to be able to pass our background check. And then, like I said, there's an internal piece. Like if you've worked for us before and were terminated, was it because the project ended, or it was because you did something really egregious and we can't continue?
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. And by the way, and fraud could be like something like operating under false pretenses, impersonating somebody, basically doing anything nefarious that would negate you from saying, hey, look, you're operating on some compliance and you couldn't be compliant before. So then you have a propensity, right? You have some type of like history around you that you could possibly do it again. And so, if you're thinking about it, don't do it. Just don't do it anyway. Not because you want to be a canvasser, just because you're breaking the law. Right?
Okay. We're just trying to have a society here, everybody.
We're not saying, just, you gotta be squeaky clean. Just don't be, money laundering and things of that nature. Things that will probably get you like some time. That's all. That's all. Other than that, though, y'all fly away to Fieldworks. But, I just say, because I feel like sometimes people really want to know these like very intimate.
Sure.
Like,
And to be perfectly honest, a lot of the thing that comes up frequently around background checks, like when we let people know, hey, we're pending a background check, we'd really like to have you on board. They'll start in and it turns into like, confession. I'm like, oh, we don't even need to know. Like, I don't want to know. I want to, if you did your time and it's done, we're all done with that. Let's just keep going forward. I don't need to know. But all I need to know actually is, can you pass our background check? Mm-hmm. Yes or no? Roll the dice. We pay for the background check. You might as well just give it a shot.
That's what I would say. Yeah. Let me tell you something. Don't ask, apologize. This is one rule I should tell anybody out there. Look, you apologize after the fact. You don't ask, because if you ask, you might get a no. And so anybody out there trying to figure out whether or not it's for you, go after it and let the folks tell you no. Don't operate under the self-defeatist mindset that I can't get this job. You should go, you know what though? Operate in abundance, young man, young woman, or whoever you are out there, and going, I'm about to go get this job because it's for me. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think, I don't know. Are we at time? We wrapping up here? What do you think, Tamia? We got one more, time for one more?
I think we could probably try to, they've been here for a while, so maybe we could try to ask them real quick if we can do it.
Last one. This is the last one.
I like you want to do, I think this one on certifications is a really good question.
Yeah.
You want me, I'll go ahead. Are there specific online certifications or training steps that you look for in the hiring process? Van, boat builder, training, what else? NDTC meaning?
I would say those are all wonderful when we see them on people's resumes. The thing that we love even more than that is if you've canvassed for us. Honestly, I'm being completely serious. It has a lot to do with, can you learn our processes? So if you've got a certification in something, what that tells us is you can learn a system. That means you can learn our system. If you've canvassed, then you know what it's like to canvass, and you know how you like to be spoken to as a canvasser, right? Mm-hmm. When it's hard as a canvasser, what you need from your director in terms of support and encouragement at the end of the day. What we really, like I said, it's fantastic when we see that people have those certifications. It demonstrates commitment. It demonstrates your willingness to learn, your ability to learn, because, we are a very systems heavy organization, and what we care about the most is your ability to learn our systems, your ability to kind of think on your feet and, demonstrate and enact those, our values around, valuing labor, and treating people with dignity and respect. We care about that. We can teach a lot of people how to use our systems, but some of the stuff that's a little bit more difficult to come by sometimes can be that personal side, and which is why it's so great. I mean, we have so many people who, come up through the canvasser track, right? And a lot of people who work for us never even went to college. So it's not even really about the how smart are you or any of those kinds of things. It's, are you out there getting it done? Do you have enough initiative to walk up to strangers and do this cold call face to face with a stranger, right? And really throw yourself into it and get the community, not just that one signature, but grow it from there. Get that person hyped about the thing that's so important to the community and grow the office. And hey, and you can get paid to do this thing that's really important to you anyway, right? So that's a lot more of I would say what we're about. We love it when people have those kinds of qualifications, but it's certainly not the end of the story. If you don't have those things, like, don't count yourself out at all,
Okay, that's very helpful. And I know that people want to have all the prior qualifications. So that's really great. So we have two more. We're going to ask this one real quick. Let's see. My formal resume was not required to be hired as a petition coordinator, though my background in issue-based organizing and lobbying work would make me great for promoting beyond petitioner. can I bring my resume to my first day for consideration as a team leader?
Oh yeah. I mean, honestly, just let your director know that you're interested in that. And hey, I did these things too. And that director should probably say, hey, have you thought about applying to be a director? You don't have to start as a canvasser in our company. You can apply at the director level. Like both of those application portals exist on our website. Those are kind of the two main avenues in our company. And then once you're in as a director, that's where like all the promoting from within happens, is, from our director ranks, because this whole thing, our company is very flat. That we have at the moment, we have about 700 employees.
Wow.
Yeah. And only only 8 of them are senior leadership. Okay.
How many are in senior leadership, did you say?
8 people.
Okay.
That's partners, vice presidents, and program managers. So that, our company is flat.
Wow.
And so that's 700 in like off season coming into winter time. At the end of 2020, I think we were well above 2,000 employees, company wide. And and it was still, I think there might have been 10 people in that senior leadership, but for the most part, it's pretty flat. What we care about is we got to go out into the field and get this stuff done. So there's not, egos around. You got to go through all, it's when we do trainings, there's time to hang out with the partners. And actually one of our applicants for senior director talked about this in their interview. They were like, I've not worked for an organization where it's likely that I'm going to have make small talk, have some kind of joke pass with one of the partners in our Slack channel or whatever it is. Right. I would say that's probably one of the things that a lot of people like about working here. It's like, there's not so many layers in between you and the people who own the place.
Cool beans. Yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, we got one more. Kristina, can we get one more out of you?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, thank you. We appreciate you being a good sport. We do appreciate that. All right, so it was kind of some ticks up, the ladder. We kind of missed it, but so we do apologize out there. If you're still on right now, thank you so much for being patient out there, and really everybody who's been a part of this actual webinar. Hopefully you come back for the other ones. There'll be more and more things to come. But with that being said, though, last question, but definitely not least here. So you mentioned quality control jobs. Describe jobs that are in that category.
Yes. Okay. So what the quality control arm of the company is one of the things that Fieldworks does better than probably anybody else out there is we can track, validity. We call it, it's this category called validity, but we have really strict, we will often kind of evaluate whether or not a signature or a voter registration card is going to count, because it passes through our quality control people first, based on what the local law is, right? Whatever the state law is, whatever the county electoral, whatever, we're going to run it through that screening process. And mostly that's so that we can figure out what our own progress is. It also helps us troubleshoot. So it's like, oh, you've got one of your canvassers is not asking people if they're registered to vote before they sign this petition. And it's obvious because there's all of these people who've signed it who are not registered to vote, right? Mm-hmm. So we can identify those problems before we, just have the raw signatures. We've got 50,000 signatures so far. Actually, if we don't identify, hey, you got to ask people, hey, make sure that you've got the zip code there. We catch that stuff first so that we don't ruin the entire project, right? By not addressing those kinds of, fill it out correctly issues. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you very much. Thank you. And without further ado, I think to me it's your time to kind of, get us on out there. Before I say that though, Kristina, do you have any closing remarks? Anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Oh gosh, I think I want to kind of latch on to what you said before, which is don't disqualify yourself from any job really, but certainly not from one of ours before you even have a chance to apply, because we are grassroots through and through, and there are a lot of ways to enter our organization with what seems like no background, no political background. I don't even pay attention to politics. And those folks can often turn into some of our best some of our best directors and sometimes even program managers. So, please don't ever count yourself out. I mean, if that's not the essence of grassroots politics and being involved, I don't know what is. So that sentiment. And then also, of course, thank you both so much for having me on and letting us have this conversation.
Well, thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Cirilo.
We're just saying the same thing at the same time. So jinx.
Yes, jinx. Yep, jinx, like we say as kids. So just wanted to say thank you. This was a great conversation. It was as amazing as I thought it would be. And we appreciate the work that you all do, the way you take care of your staff. And it's very inspiring to hear. So if folks want more information, we will be sending out the recording of this. And then we will be having these events every Wednesday, with the exception of some of the holidays coming up right before Thanksgiving and Christmas. But we'll be doing these throughout the next couple of months. And Cirilo, thank you for doing this with us. It's exciting to work with Black with No Chaser. And we appreciate you and your candor through this. So thank you all so much. And that's going to wrap us up today. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you. Are we still?